In an era where car culture is often served up in overproduced reality shows and social media is filled with flashy builds and louder personalities, there's one name quietly gaining traction in the underground: Sara Choi. You won't find her chasing airtime or clout. She doesn't need to. Because on the streets, on the track, and in the garage, Sara has already earned something far more valuable: respect. She's not the face of a TV franchise. She's not hosting a fake shop drama. Yet, the ones who really know the scene, the grassroots drifters, the true builders, the ones who breathe JDM like religion, they know exactly who she is. Because while others talk, she drifts. Sara Choi is from a place you wouldn't expect. Born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii, her roots aren't in Hollywood or Detroit, but on an island where style, culture, and horsepower collide under the tropical sun. Her early years weren't about proving anything. They were about soaking it all in: streetwear, Japanese car magazines, late-night meetups, the sound of turbos in back alleys. Before she ever touched a track, she was working behind the scenes, learning, watching, wrenching. She cut her teeth at Illust and Auto Fashion, two staples in the streetwear meets automotive world. It wasn't glamorous, it was real. She started at the bottom, grinding like everyone else, and quietly, she began to rise. But the question remains, why isn't Sara a household name yet? Why is someone with her skills, style, and influence still flying under the mainstream radar? Because Sara Choi doesn't fit their mold. She doesn't want to. Her story doesn't play by the usual rules. And that's what makes it impossible to ignore. And we're just getting started. Sara Choi didn't grow up around racetracks or big-name garages. She was raised in Honolulu, where the rhythm of island life collided with the pulse of underground car culture. While most kids were cruising the beach or chasing tourist thrills, Sara was studying the lines of Japanese street machines, sketching body kits in school notebooks, and sneaking peeks under hoods in parking lots. Her first exposure to the scene came not through fame, but through work. As a teenager, she landed jobs at Illust and Auto Fashion, brands deeply embedded in the intersection of fashion and cars. She wasn't just folding shirts or organizing inventory. She was watching, learning, meeting the names behind the cars, understanding how style, stance, and function weren't separate ideas, but inseparable expressions. Sara was soaking up everything: the details, the builds, the culture. Hawaii's car scene is unique, isolated, yet deeply influenced by Japanese tuning styles. Everything from Bosozoku aesthetics to clean kanjo lines could be found tucked in garages across the island. Sara was in the middle of it, bridging that culture with her own flair. But she wasn't just a fan. She wanted in, not to be famous, but to build, to drive, to create. And that's where most stories about women in the car scene usually fade into cliché. But Sara's story only gets sharper. She picked up tools, learned to wrench, got her hands dirty, and as she did, her identity began to form: equal parts artist, builder, and street racer. Her personality? Quiet confidence. Her style? Unmistakable. The island gave her a launch pad, but it was her vision that gave her wings. And soon, the streets wouldn't be enough. Because Sara Choi didn't just want to look the part. She wanted to slide sideways into the next chapter. In the world of car culture, style matters, but substance makes it stick. Sara Choi? She has both. And what sets her apart isn't just horsepower or clean lines. It's how she fuses identity, fashion, and aggression into every car she touches. She's the kind of builder who turns heads before the car even rolls out. Sleeves of ink peek out from a grease-streaked hoodie. Her hands are tattooed, her nails chipped from hours with a torque wrench. Her look? A hybrid of JDM racer, underground artist, and high-end streetwear. She doesn't dress for attention. She dresses like her builds look, raw, bold, deliberate. But here's the key. Sara doesn't just model next to cars. She's not some social media face tagging along for exposure. She's the one behind the welds, under the hood, making final adjustments before the engine turns over. She builds with purpose. She drifts with fire. And she does it with a confidence that silences doubters faster than a burnout. Her early collaborations with Rauch Welt Begriff, a brand known for its aggressively styled wide-body Porsches, cemented her place in the culture. Working alongside RWB's Akira Nakai, she brought her own twist to these iconic machines: stance, art, and unapologetic street function. She wasn't trying to fit into the scene, she was resculpting it. Even her choice of car, the Nissan S14, says everything. Not the flashiest, not the newest, but under her hands, it becomes a beast. Wide body, low, sharp as a blade. Built not for showrooms, but for the track. What made her truly stand out, though, was that she wasn't trying to stand out. She just was. And that, in a scene overflowing with egos and Instagram filters, is what made people pay attention. Because when Sara rolls up, no one asks if she's real. They already know. Every builder has a turning point. For Sara Choi, it wasn't a viral video or a sponsorship deal. It was the moment she first broke traction and felt the car come alive beneath her. Drifting didn't come to her as a hobby. It hit like a wave, and once it did, there was no going back. Her gateway drug? The Nissan S14. A platform known for its balance, potential, and rear-wheel drive attitude. She didn't just mod it, she transformed it. Wide body flares, low offset wheels, stripped interior, roll cage, tuned suspension. Everything screamed, track ready. But it wasn't about showing off. It was about control, through chaos. Sara started attending local grassroots drift events, the kind where the tires outnumber the cameras, and every scratch tells a story. Empty lots, makeshift tracks, cones in industrial parks. These were her proving grounds. No sponsors, no trophy girls, no hype. Just rubber, smoke, and throttle. Drifting, to her, was never about spectacle. It was about rhythm, precision, flow, finding the edge and dancing on it. She trained relentlessly, not to be the best on paper, but to master the language of the car, the road, the moment. She watched Japanese drift legends on VHS and YouTube, mimicking every flick, every transition. Until one day, mimicking wasn't enough. So she went to the source, Japan. While most American drivers treat Japanese drift tracks as fantasy, Sara made it real. She traveled overseas, trained on their asphalt, and slid through corners carved by masters. And she earned their respect, not because she was a novelty, but because she could drive. Sara didn't just learn to drift. She became part of drifting. And in the silence between tire screeches, something else started to shift. Her reputation. For most drifters, Japan is a pilgrimage. For Sara, it was a proving ground. She didn't go there to post selfies or build clout. She went there to earn it. On Japan's sacred drift courses, Ebisu, Nikko, Maihan, Sara faced the heart of the culture she'd admired for years. And the stakes were higher than ever. Over there, nobody cared about your Instagram. They cared about your line, your throttle control, your proximity to the clipping point. It wasn't about hype, it was about respect. Sara didn't arrive with a camera crew or sponsors. She brought her skills, her silence, and her hunger to learn. And Japan responded. She trained alongside seasoned veterans and local legends, men who had been drifting since she was a kid. They didn't hand her credibility. She earned it, lap after lap, burnout after burnout. Her style evolved, cleaner, tighter, more aggressive. Her transitions became smoother, her entries deeper. What began as passion became pure discipline. But it wasn't just the technique that changed. It was the mindset. In Japan, drifting isn't sport, it's philosophy. It's about harmony between machine and driver. Sara absorbed this with every track day, every set of bald tires, every oil-stained sunrise spent working on her S chassis. By the time she returned to the States, something had shifted. She didn't just have a better car or tighter lines. She had presence. People noticed it at events. They noticed it online. She wasn't just part of the scene anymore. She was setting the pace. And with that came a new kind of pressure. Attention. Everyone wanted to know who she was, what she was working on, and, more importantly, what she was going to do next. The answer, at the time, surprised everyone. Nothing. Not publicly. Because Sara was about to make a decision that would shape her entire legacy. Sara Choi had offers, real ones. Reality TV producers came knocking, YouTube networks, brands wanting to build series around her, scripted garage dramas, lifestyle shows, docu-series, you name it. She turned them down. Every single one. Why? Because none of it felt real. Mainstream car TV, though popular, often sacrifices authenticity for spectacle. Forced arguments, over-dramatized deadlines, builds rushed for runtime. And Sara knew, deep down, that the story they'd tell wasn't hers. It was a version of her, molded to fit a formula, a character in a costume. And she refused to play that part. Sara doesn't drift for cameras. She drifts for the art, the feeling of grip slipping away and trust forming between her and the machine. No cue cards, no fake tension, just raw focus and real asphalt. She said it herself. She'd rather build one perfect drift line than deliver 1,000 sound bites. While others were building their brand, she was building her skill. And ironically, that made her more magnetic than any scripted series could. Fans weren't drawn to a manufactured image. They were drawn to her discipline, her presence, the mystery. And in a landscape where everyone's fighting to be seen, Sara became rare. She chose to stay in the shadows, letting her driving, her builds, and her values speak for her. The result? A mythos. She became the name whispered at events, the one everyone wanted to meet, but few ever did. The Drift Queen not bought or built for TV, but made in tire smoke and silence. She didn't need to chase the spotlight, because real light always finds the ones who burn the brightest. While Sara Choi kept rejecting the mainstream, something strange happened. Her legend grew anyway. She didn't need a PR team. Her builds, low, aggressive, battle-scarred, did all the talking. And her driving? It turned heads without needing a single edit. She showed up, drove sideways, and left people speechless. Over time, she became something rare in the modern car scene, an icon with mystique. And brands started taking notice, but this time on her terms. She became the face of collaborations with Hoonigan, Illust, and even revisited projects with Rauch Welt Begriff. Not because she asked, but because they understood the value of someone who could walk between two worlds, the art of the street and the grit of the track. Sara's image was powerful, inked, poised, but always grounded. She represented a new archetype, a builder who knew fashion, style, and culture, but who never stopped getting her hands dirty. She wasn't just behind the wheel. She was behind the wrench, the welder, the design. And while her Instagram started gaining tens of thousands of followers, she rarely posted. Each picture felt deliberate, each update cryptic. It wasn't about content, it was about connection. And the more she resisted the spotlight, the more people wanted to follow her journey. She became a symbol for something bigger, for women in motorsports, for Asian American builders, for people who loved the craft more than the fame, for anyone who was told to smile more or play the game to get ahead, and chose to build their own lane instead. And just like that, Sara wasn't underground anymore. She was the street's best-kept secret, and everyone was waiting to see what she'd do next. As Sara Choi's name echoed louder through drift circles and car culture undergrounds, her role began to shift. She wasn't just a builder or a driver anymore. She was becoming a symbol, though she never asked to be. In an industry still dominated by male voices, Sara stood out, not because she demanded attention, but because she earned it. She didn't posture or preach. She worked, she built, she performed, and by doing so, she carved a lane that didn't exist before, for women, for Asian Americans, for anyone told they didn't fit in the garage. Young girls began showing up to events wearing her signature streetwear, DMing her for advice on car school, watching her drive and realizing that drifting didn't have to be a boys' club. Sara never called herself a role model, but that didn't stop her from becoming one. Back home in Hawaii, she started giving back, collaborating with youth car culture groups, hosting workshops, quietly donating to local build programs. She didn't need to film it or broadcast it. It wasn't for likes, it was for legacy. And here's the twist no one saw coming. Sara Choi didn't want fame. She wanted impact. She didn't want to be a guest on someone else's show. She wanted to help rewrite the scene itself. One where authenticity wins. One where the loudest voice doesn't always get the trophy. One where the most skilled, the most passionate, and the most real rise up. Not through hype, but through heat. Despite her reputation for keeping a low profile, Sara Choi hasn't slowed down. In fact, she's entering what might be her boldest chapter yet. She's still based in Hawaii, her roots firmly planted, but her wheels are constantly moving. Recent months have seen her drifting in Japan again, popping up at secret tuning events in LA, and testing builds in Southeast Asia. The whispers online? They say she's developing something big, something different. There's talk of a documentary project, one that finally tells her story her way. Not dramatized, not sanitized, just raw, beautiful grit. Her fans are begging for it, and for once, she might actually give it to them. But even more exciting? The cars! She's teased an electric drift project, a stripped-down, wide-body EV with enough torque to make purists sweat. Another post hinted at a resurrection of the AE86, rebuilt with modern tech but retaining that nostalgic DNA. There's talk of Sara creating a custom chassis line, drift-focused, female-designed, and track-tested. And maybe the most interesting part? She's started mentoring, taking a few young builders under her wing, guiding them not with fame, but with tools and time. Her garage isn't just a space to build cars anymore. It's becoming a school, a laboratory, a launch pad. Sara isn't just building for herself now. She's building the future. Sara Choi never needed a crown, but she earned one anyway. She didn't scream for attention. She didn't follow the rules. She didn't let the culture define her. She redefined it. One drift at a time, one build at a time, one moment of pure, unfiltered authenticity at a time. And in doing so, she became something bigger than a brand or a figurehead. She became a movement. You won't find her on mainstream reality shows. She's not hosting garage competitions or doing build reveals under stage lights. You'll find her where the rubber meets the road. At sunrise, wrench in hand, sliding sideways through corners with nothing but focus and fire. She represents what the scene desperately needs. Someone who builds because she loves it. Someone who drifts because she has to. Someone who inspires without needing to be watched. Her story isn't over. It's just entering its next lap. And if you blink, you'll miss it. Because Sara Choi never waited for permission. She never needed approval. She never asked for a platform. She built one. And now the world is finally catching up.